Good evening, everyone. I'm Akshat, and I've been presenting this second book in this club today. The first book was Flight of Deities and Rebirth of Temples, which I presented last February. And so everyone knows my genre is now only history, and it's now about a very book. And I don't know how I got across this book, like why I bought it, or how I came to know about this. This is an autobiography of an American Jewish teenager who is interested in spirituality, interested in God, and he goes on a search, on a spiritual journey from the US. He comes to India, and to finally find his spiritual path and his guru. So that is the journey in this book, The Journey Home, by Radhanath Swami, whose work name is Richard. He, after initiation, became Radhanath Swami. So, first of all, a disclaimer. I find myself totally unqualified to be able to present the philosophical tenets contained in this book, explained by Swami Maharaj. And so I will not even attempt to do that. What I'll do, though I cannot preach what's contained in this book, that is for you to read. What I'll try to do instead is just, first of all, give a brief summary of the plot, what is his journey, and then point out a few incidents from the book. Few key incidents that just made me question my own beliefs, or made me question the assumptions that I had about life. And the intention is not to give you answers, but to raise some questions in your mind that I hope will tease you for days. I'll just begin on that note. So, to start, I'll just give a brief summary of the plotline. So, Richard is a 19-year-old Jewish guy who lives in Florida, America, with a very conservative Jewish family. The family had escaped from Nazi Germany, not actually Germany, a country which Germany had invaded in the time of Second World War. So they were a very conservative, very pious Jewish family. And this kid, this teenager, was interested in spirituality and finding God since the very beginning. So when he was in college, in the summer breaks, he got an opportunity with a couple of his friends to go on a trip to Europe. Not a very spiritual thing, but he just took it. So 3 of them went to Europe for 2 months, saying that they will return after the 2 months before the college starts. So just after they reached, they got robbed, and one of the friends just went back to US, saying, if we have been robbed, we cannot live here, we don't have any money, and then just went back. But the 2 of these remaining friends, Richard and his friend Gary, they said that we are here on a spiritual quest, we will not leave, we will live here and try to explore even without money. So I think that was the first point where that sort of opened my eyes to live without money. So they traveled throughout Europe, from London to France to Spain to Italy, Greece, everywhere they traveled. How did they travel? They were hitchhiking. They were just standing on the road waiting for someone to give them a lift to whatever place they were going. So it's sort of an adventure where they could go next, wherever the next car or next truck takes them. They were living maybe in youth hostels or cheap hostels, sometimes sleeping under trees, eating cheap food, doing all sorts of experiments, maybe earning money by playing music on the roads or maybe donating blood. And they did pass a few months that way. So that was sort of a revelation that you can do that. You don't have to be very stable and secure to be able to travel. When these 2 guys were in Italy and they were meditating on a rock over some mountain somewhere, and over there Richard got an inner voice spoke to him, go to India, that is where your path lies. So before that he had gone to Jewish synagogues, he had gone to mosques, he had gone to churches, gone to other monasteries, spoke to monks, learned from them and everything, but that voice said go to India. At the same time, the voice inside Gary said go to Israel. So at that point, both of those friends separated on their separate journeys. And this is 1970, so they had no mobile phones, no nothing. So that separation was separation. You do not know if, not just when, if you will meet ever again. So this guy, obviously he had no money. He could not take a flight from Italy to India. He took the land route, hitchhiking. So from Italy he went to Greece, Greece to Turkey, Turkey to Iran, to Afghanistan, Pakistan and India. And even for people not looking for spirituality, it has a lot of adventure in this. So Turkey was cholera infested at that time. A cholera epidemic was going on, and they had near-death encounters. They ran with the mafia in Istanbul. They were staying in some home or some hotel of the mafia. They went against them, and there was a very dramatic scene where they're in the room. The mafia is trying to get in. They're trying to hold the door, and this guy's like, "I want to urinate," and urinates out the window while two of his friends are just holding the door. So very interesting adventures also, not just spirituality. From there he goes to Iran, he goes to Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, was the center point of the Cold War in those days between the US and USSR. A very inhospitable place, full of deserts and danger everywhere. But what he discovered in Afghanistan was immense hospitality among those people. I'll just read what he says over here. So he went to a town in Afghanistan called Herat. He said the people here were charming and friendly. In the stark desert terrain, they wore raggedy, dusty clothing and lived in shambled dwellings. Although they were the poorest people I had seen in my travels yet, everyone I passed offered a smile and no one asked me for anything. On the contrary, they were eager to share what little they had. Each day in Herat, I was invited into their homes. So he was living in their homes only when he was traveling Afghanistan. And in fact, in every other place, he was invited by someone to live in their homes. And they lived in the heart of one small room. They joyfully shared the flatbread with me. They could neither read or write, but they struck me as both humble and wise, living with dignity through the tribulations of their lives. So, quite a revelation that, we are not the kind of people who would just welcome a stranger into our homes, who's come from another country and don't know what his intentions. But the kind of hospitality I see in this that is very heartwarming. After that, he goes to Pakistan, and then at the Hussainiwala border, he tries to enter India. After 6 months of journey from Italy to India, this hazardous journey, he was denied entry into India. So the custom officer said, so this is 1970, just before 1971 war. So the waves of the war were already there, the dispute was already going on. At that time, he reached the border. They denied him entry, saying that you do not have enough money. You should have at least $200 to be able to enter India. And he was literally a beggar at that point of time. So the custom officer said, you require $200 minimum to enter. Where is your money? You cannot enter them, go back to your own country. Richard said to her, but I've traveled overland for months, risking my life to see your country. I burn with a desire to study your religions from the holy people. I've abandoned the comforts of an American home out of love for India. Please give me a chance. And she glared at him. We're beggars enough in India, we don't want another one. And he lay there sitting for hours, waiting that God would do something. Soon the shift changed, and instead of that lady, a sick man came at the custom office. The lady had warned him that do not let this guy enter. But still Richard tried again. He says, tears sprang to my eyes as I explained my life and spiritual aspirations to the new custom officer. I have left behind the comforts of America to search for India's spiritual treasures. Risking my life, I have hitchhiked all the way from London to reach your homeland. I yearn to find a way to God. Please be kind to me. Someday I promise to do something good for the people of India. Honestly, sir, I will help your people. Please give me a chance. The custom officer, tears filled his eyes. He said, sometimes a man must follow his heart. I believe in your words. It is done, son, I give you my blessing. May you find the truth you are crying for. Welcome to India. At this point, I realized that people go to such trials and tribulations to be able to come to this spiritual land of India. And we have been so fortunate enough to have been born here. And yet perhaps maybe we do not take advantage of the treasures that India holds for us. The fortune that we have access to those treasures directly. And people like Radhanath Swami have to travel for months in such conditions to just be able to enter India. That was very revealing. After that, obviously, he went to the Himalayas. There is where everywhere goes. everyone goes to search for spirituality. He met sadhus, he met yogis, he lived with Naga sadhus for some time, he went to the all famous ashrams, he met Mother Teresa, he met Dalai Lama, he met Sri Prabhupada, he met Neem Karoli Baba, he met Anand Mahima, and a lot of other people. He stayed with them in caves, in forests. He abandoned his clothes and took the clothes of a sadhu with stick and a begging bowl. He stayed in Vrindavan, he stayed in Patna. He said a long journey he went through. In fact, he went to Nepal once to see Pashupatinath. So one incident in Nepal. So they was just walking near a rice paddy field, and it started to rain. So he had no umbrella, but he saw someone walking a bit ahead of him who had an umbrella. He just rushed towards him and just stood behind him within the same umbrella sharing, because it was a very narrow path. And did not speak for some time because they were just walking ahead. When the rain stopped, so he thanked that guy for sharing his umbrella. That guy turned, and that guy was Gary. So the Gary that he had left in Italy, because he was going to Israel and he was coming to India, both of them randomly meet in Nepal in a random paddy field. So at that point I was just thinking, like, is it even a real story? This seems just so unrealistic. I mean, just so perfect. Like, how could that even happen? So this was 1970. You don't have mobile phones, you don't have anything. And how can you just meet who are separated in Italy or meeting in Nepal? Just God's will for them to meet. So eventually, he found his guru, his path, finally in Vrindavan. He stayed there till his visa finally expired, and he had to return to the US. He later on took initiation in the US from his guru, became a sannyasi after some time, returned to India, and is currently lives as a monk in a temple ashram in Juhu in Mumbai. And so I just mentioned that at that custom gate, he had said, hey, I will do something for your country. Please let me in. So this Radhanath Swami. In 1986, he returned to India. He established several temples as spiritual educational centers, ashrams to cultivate pure living, a hospital in Mumbai. And he is the brains behind the midday meal scheme in India, serving nutritious food to 150,000 students, at least at the time of this book was written. So he is the brains and the inspiration behind that. So he did finally do something for the people of India, as promised to that customs officer. So this was a brief summary of the book, and now I'll start the main part of the presentation. So this will be a long presentation. When I start talking, I do not stop. So it could be a long thing. I will not adhere to the time limit.
We have time. Don't worry. You can start.
Yes. So I will try to mention just 5-6 incidents in an ascending order of how much they affected me, and which also happens to be coincidentally chronological. So first of all, so when he was living with the yogis in the Himalayas in Rishikesh or Dehradun or Haridwar or somewhere, what he witnessed. So before that, I'll just state what we normally believe. So we have sort of an intellectual arrogance that what we can see, we don't believe that. We claim that we are very rational people, or logical people, or scientific people. We say, if science can prove this, then I will believe it, as it is andhvishwas or something. We have that, some sort of arrogance in each one of us. I think everyone would agree. Everyone may not agree it is arrogance or not, but everyone would agree that we claim that we are rational and logical and scientific people. So over there, he witnessed yogis performing mystic feats that were obviously not explainable by science. When living with the Naga sadhus, he saw them meditating, and while meditating, they would just levitate off the ground. And like no one would even observe that. I mean, it was just so normal for them. He would see people just creating a shivling out of his bare hands, creating ashes out of his bare hands. There was one specific incident that was like the pinnacle of these feats. So I'll just read that specific part out. So this is in Devprayag, where the two tributaries of Ganga meet, Alaknanda and Bhagirathi. So one day, while in Dev Prayag, I was invited to a nearby ashram for a meal among the sadhus. While there, a yogi emerged from the jungle. Nobody knew him. He advertised for the doctors of the town to assemble that evening. After several doctors arrived, the yogi made his appearance and challenged. Materially infected, you have more faith in modern science than your own heritage. God has brought me out of the forest to crush your foolish pride. By yogic power, I will shut down all my life systems and die. You test me with your medical instruments. In exactly 30 minutes, I will rise from the dead. With his back erect, sitting in a lotus position, he inhaled and exhaled about 20 times. Then, fully inhaling, he stopped breathing and sat motionless. Each doctor went to work with stethoscope and other devices, but no one could detect a heartbeat, breath, or pulse. They were all astonished. He is clinically dead, they announced. Even Richard, the author, he stepped forward and borrowed a stethoscope to check his pulse and heartbeat. There was none. He says that I had witnessed a lot of mystic feats before this. He had been almost used to seeing those things. But this scene was truly amazing. Exactly 30 minutes later, to the second, the yogi exhaled, opened his eyes, stood up, and marched back into the jungles. He didn't ask anything from anyone. He simply wanted to show these skeptics the power of yoga. Both the doctors and myself gazed in amazement at his departing form, returning to the wilds. So that was the beginning, almost the first point that actually struck me, that we do have a lot of arrogance in ourselves, that we won't believe anything that our senses cannot explain or our mind cannot explain, but we don't recognize the limitations of our senses or the limitations of our mind. There are obviously things beyond that, and we are too arrogant to accept it. But while I was just pondering over this, within 10 pages, he broke this same myth down again. So, I'll just see that page as well. So this time he was in, I think, Badrinath or somewhere, Rishikesh or somewhere. He was with a pilgrim couple who had hosted him. So over there, a yogi in his late 30s was begging for charity, but his host had ignored him. So irritated, he fixed his mind to teach them a good lesson. So what he did was, the yogi that was begging, he stood on a chair and reached up to unscrew a glowing light bulb from its socket. Then he crushed the hot bulb with his bare hand. He opened his fist and showed that he had grounded it into fine powder, but his hand not a trace of blood or a single cut. And then he poured all that fine grass into his mouth, drank Ganga's jal, and just swallowed it all. And this was just the beginning of what he started to do. Next, he got a long steel pipe, pole of steel rebar. He covered one eye with a thin patch of cloth. He balanced the one end of metal pole on this eye socket, other one against a wall. And then he walked towards the wall, bending the steel rebar with his eye. And he then showed that his eye was totally undamaged. And Yogi explained later on. And for 20 years, I lived with my guru in a Himalayan cave. Guruji took note that I was using my powers he taught me for prestige and monetary gain, so he rejected me. He exiled me from the ashram and cursed me to go back into the society. Now I'm raising money to get married. Having been trained as a yogi, this is the only way I know how to make a living. At this point, the author says that even though I had realized by now that such mystic feats were not to be revered too much above simple devotion to God, but at this point he realized that these mystic powers are not even spiritual at all. They were purely material. Just some abilities were got by some sadhana. There is nothing spiritual about it. He says that such feats, unconnected to a meaningful search for God, were truly unsubstantial. On another incident, another yogi had said, so this other yogi had also done some mystic feats in front of an audience, but then he said, do not be fooled. What you saw is not spiritual. Rather, it is a material skill attained through meditation and austerities. I am not God, nor is anyone else who performs such supernatural feats. The author wondered at this point that this guy, even though he could perform such amazing things, he did not impress him. There wasn't an aura of peace, of divine bliss around him, because when he had visited other sadhus or actually spiritual figures, he could sense their presence. There was a divine aura around them, there was a sense of bliss around them, and they just impressed upon him. But this guy was simply a material guy who was doing some tricks. Literally, it was in the end, it was some tricks to earn some money. So he wondered, what is that thing that is different from him and the people who do impress him? So he realized that these powers are not what are important, but more important is the purity of heart, the compassion, the kindness, the sense of service, the honesty and love for everyone. In short, called purity of the heart. That is what was different in them, and that is what attracted him and all others as well. And that was what missing in this particular yogi. He was doing it for money. His heart was not pure. He was earlier also doing all those things for prestige and money. And therefore all his achievements, however amazing they may be, did not impress Richard. He was seeking something more. So on this point of purity of heart, there were a few more examples. There are a lot of examples. The book is full of them, but I'll just quote a limited few. So when Richard went to Calcutta to meet Mother Teresa, so he has met all of those people. I don't know how a 19-year-old person can get access to all those people. Mother Teresa, Dalai Lama, and all those very secret sadhus and gurus.
The same way you got access to India, I guess.
All God's will.
At that time, it was easy to, now probably the Dalai Lama is in Europe, you will be able to take from India.
So when he reached Mother Teresa, she was doing her daily chores. I looked in and saw Mother Teresa scrubbing a large charred cooking pot with her own devoted hands. My heart melted. Later on, other visitors asked Mother Teresa that why do you wash the pots? Is there not someone else who can do this? Mother Teresa looked warmly on the visitor. Serving God and humanity is an honor, not a chore. Any type of service to God is a blessing. There is no high or low. Just made me realize that often the perspective we have over life is that let me delegate this, let someone else do it for me. And that is where we see that happiness, that I should not have to do this, someone else can do it for me. But over here she said that service is an honor, I want to do it, no one else should take it from me. That is the purity of heart. So she says that feeding the stomachs of the poor is not so difficult. She says feeding the starving hearts of humanity with God's love. That is the great challenge. You see, our hearts must be pure to give that love. So the point about purity of heart just goes on building as the book progresses. There's another point about honesty and non-duplicity. So we all know that we must be honest, but we do not take honesty to its pinnacle. We cut ourselves some slack over there, saying that this is normal, this is how the world works, and we have to do it that way. But there was one incident that happened. So this is when Richard, who at that point was called Krishnadas, he was in Vrindavan, in the ashram of Maharaj. So he had a friend called David, and he was a photographer, he had a camera. Some devotees had come and they asked David, can you click a group photo of us? So then David turned to the author and whispered that there is only one more shot in the film. It's my last role. I was saving the shot for something special. What should I do? They are posing. So then David and the author, they decided to pretend to take the photo by imitating a clicking sound. And as they posed. Then without thinking twice about his deception, we went about our duties. The next day, he was taken aback to see the leader of those devotees silently crying. He asked why is he in such distress. The person said, because of what you did. Yesterday you pretended to take our photo while we posed. This was duplicitous. Shame on you for insulting us. You are a devotee of Krishna. How could you treat another human being with such indignity? Don't you know Lord Chaitanya taught us to be humble like a blade of grass and offer all respect to others? Duplicity is a terrible disease. He said, I trusted you as a devotee, but you have disappointed my expectations, therefore I cry. I cry for you, my friend, because you know so little. A real devotee would never treat anyone so cheaply. So at that point, Richard contemplated, he reflected that in ordinary society, such an insignificant transgression would be hardly noticed. I mean, this is something we could do at any time. We do much worse things without giving it a second thought. But in a devotional culture, soft-heartedness and integrity are held sacred. What really is the culture of devotion? It is so very subtle, but it fertilizes the field of the heart, so that the seed of true love may grow. At that point, I just thought that we often think all these things to be just theoretical, right? Pinnacles of heart purity and honesty. But in this book, we'd see them coming to life, being very practical. There's not things that we could just say and not live up to. There are people actually living up to that point. Now, when we talk of religions, there's a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, and they're saying that my God is superior, this God is superior, your God is false, and all fighting. Even this was 1970, this was just before the Pakistan-India war. And religious tensions have been in India since always. And in fact, religious tensions have defined world history since the fall of the Roman Empire and even earlier. Religious conflict has been the driving factor of history. But over here again, you would expect something different from people who have such a pure heart. So I'll just put another example from here. So at this point, the author was in Patna, and he had a friend called Narayan Prasad. And this Narayan Prasad had a friend who was a Muslim who was called Mohan. And all three of them met, and they discussed the true basis of religion, examining parallels with the Gita, the Bible, Quran, and they met very warmly. After some time, sitting on the banks of the Ganga one day after a talk with Muhammad, I asked Narayan Prasad, how is it that you have so much affection for someone from another religion in a country where there is so much conflict between the two? And with a warm smile, he said something I have never forgotten. And his eyes, the author with his eyes also me, because I cannot also forget this statement. So listen closely. He said, a dog will recognize his master in whatever way he dresses. Like the master may dress in robes, he may dress in suit and tie, or even stand naked. The dog will always recognize his master. Agreed? If we cannot recognize God, our beloved master, when he comes in a different dress from another religion, then we are less than that dog. So, a very interesting perspective that just stayed with me. Immense purity of heart. And the thing that shocked me the most, that actually stayed with me for the most time, was the concept of happiness. So I just ask you guys also, in very normal terms, from what do we get happiness? I don't want any philosophical answers, I just want random answers. For example, if I get my 3 meals a day, I'm happy. So any humor answers from your side. Not philosophical, just random things. When do we get happy?
Good sleep, I wake up
When I
happy.
do exercise.
When I
Okay.
see my daughter.
When I see my kids.
When I
Anyone?
travel.
When I talk with my friends.
Yes, so
Maybe if I complete my to-do list in the evening, at night I'm happy, okay, I did all my chores.
correct. So yeah, we always like, if my needs are fulfilled, if I get getting comforts, I'm getting good sleep, I have a good family, then I'm happy. But in this book, Richard, the author, met one person in Vrindavan that actually shook these beliefs to the core of mine. I just jump to that character. So this is Ghanshyam Baba. I'll just give a a little bit backstory of who Ghanshyam Baba is, and then get into the incidents. So Ghanshyam Baba says that when I was a young man, my family made pilgrimage to Vrindavan. It was here that the net of Lord's ways captured my heart. I had no power to go away. His family was abhashed by his resolve to give up a promising career and stay in Vrindavan. They threatened to cut me off from our wealth, but I was unmoved. Krishna had stolen my heart. Sleeping on the ground daily, begging for dry bread from the homes of Brajvasis, he never once hankered up his former wealth. Soon, from below the earth, two murtis of Radha and Krishna appeared to him. And then he took to serving those deities. And he has been serving them for over 50 years when this book, the author met him. So he might have been a very young teenager and now he was 60, 70 plus, an old man living over there. So there were 2-3 incidents that happened with Ghanshyam Baba with the author. So the author was introduced to Ghanshyam Baba by some other sadhu, and he really took fond of Ghanshyam Baba. He used to visit him every day, and every day he insisted that I eat the Lord's prasadam, the 3 Vraj rotis, and he would just eat them every day or for a few days. After a few days, the author was scolded by another sadhu that because of you, Ghanshyam is starving. He said, I don't understand. He said, a Brajvasi brings him 3 rotis every day. That is his only food. And every day you eat all of it. How selfish. So the next time he went to Ghanshyam's place and Ghanshyam offered him food, he pushed the leaf plate away. He said, I'm not hungry today, I will not eat. Hearing my words, Ghanshyam was stricken with sorrow. You must eat. This is Gopijan Vallabh's food. He saved it only for you. I refused. With joint palms trembling, he pleaded, is it because of my sins that you will not accept my service? Please eat my rotis. The author says my heart was breaking. I pleaded with him. Ghanshyam, you are starving because I'm eating all of your rotis. I can get rotis anywhere, but you never leave this place. Ghanshyam insisted, but I have so many rotis, there is no shortage. Please, I beg you to eat and enjoy. Richard said, if you have more rotis, show them to me. He said, no need, no need. Richard said, I refuse to accept your only food until you show me more. He says, no need, they are in that room. So I jumped up and searched the room, found nothing in it. Ghanshyam, there are no rotis here. You have been starving because of me. Please, you eat these rotis. And then Ghanshyam's eyes filled with tears as he revealed his precious heart. You are Gopijan Vallabh's friend, but I am only a servant of his servants. My only happiness in life is in serving devotees. I beg you to enjoy these rotis. With palms folded in prayer, he pleaded, I beg you, do not deprive me of the single thing I live for. I cried now. So the author says, I cried on witnessing his selfless love. For the pleasure of dear Ghanshyam, I ate all his rotis. A few days later, so he could not refuse those rotis anyway. A few days later, Ghanshyam asked him that, where will you rest tonight? He said, on the banks of Yamuna, where I rest every night. So Ghanshyam says, but it is freezing winter, you must sleep here tonight, in the temple, the small house temple. So, but Ghanshyam, I sleep there every night, but tonight you sleep here, please. So, in the narrow hallway outside the closet, so temple was in a home inside a closet. The home was of some other person who had taken pity on the Lord being served on the roadside under a tree, so he had offered a closet inside his home to be a temple for the Lord at that time when those deities appeared to Ghanshyam. And so Ghanshyam was serving in their home in the deities. So they slept on the floor in the narrow hallway. And as the author lay on the floor, Ghanshyam placed his only blanket over him. The author says, I could not allow this to happen. Snatching up the blanket, I handed it back to him. This is your blanket, you must use it. Again, no need. He says, you are an old man, I am young, you must use it. No need. No argument ensued, and he threatened a return to the riverbank. So he said, okay, I will use the blanket. So they slept. But after some time, he woke up and wondering why he was so warm, the author. And he looked over at Ghanshyam, who was lying on the floor, trembling from the cold like a leaf in a windstorm. There was no blanket on him. I realized he silently placed it over me after I fell asleep. So I covered him with it. And as soon as the blanket touched him, he shouted, "No need, you're Krishna's friend, you must enjoy good sleep." And this went on for 3-4 times at least in the book, so I will not repeat that. Again, so in one morning when the author was around the river, he was surprised to see the aged form of Ghanshyam in a lonesome alleyway. He was stumbling and falling, so he rushed to help him. With great pains, the Ghanshyam was struggled to carry a bucket of water that he had collected from the Yamuna to bathe his deities. And after every few steps, he stood limp in exhaustion. So the author said, "Ghanshyam, please allow me to carry the bucket." And again, Ghanshyam said, "No need." The author said, please, I am young, with no difficulty, I will have it at your temple in 5 minutes. You are old and weak. It will take you half hour, please let me do it. The innocent smile of little old Ghanshyam radiated from his face as he pleaded, "You are Gopijan Vallabh's young friend." Gopijan Vallabh is the name from Krishna, that is the name of the deity that was written below the Murti. "You should enjoy, I am his old servant. My life is to serve. You go now and enjoy Vrindavan. That will make me happy." Now, his humility simultaneously melted my heart and worried my mind. "Please, I will be most happy to carry your bucket." And I gripped the handle of the bucket and pulled. Then Ghanshyam's entire body tensed like a tree. Freezing with determination, he grasped that handle with all of his strength. His eyes searched mine in desperation. He said, "I am a poor old man. My only wealth is my service." His eyes grew red and swelled with tears. "If you take away my service to the Lord, you will take away my life. Please allow me to live. Please." The author says, my heart sank. What else could I do? I gave him his life back and his bucket. So, when you look at this character of Ghanshyam, who had nothing, who left everything, who sleeps on the floor, who eats 3 rotis a day given by someone, and he derives more joy from giving those rotis every day to a young guy and just starving instead of just eating that little food himself. He would rather starve and give that food to someone else. All his service, all his happiness came from serving others. And the author says, I'll just put that again. He says one more thing about Ghanshyam towards the end. He says, to selflessly serve others was Ghanshyam's heart's only joy. Ghanshyam Baba was one of the happiest and wealthiest man I had ever met. A simple man who simply loved God. So, I mean, the immense humility that you are Krishna's friend and I am only servant of his servant. The immense sentiment of service and the joy he derived from that service. That just made me question that all of us are seeking happiness in our lives, but no one is as happy as this guy. So are we seeking it the wrong way? Totally. I will not answer that question. I want to leave you with that question. So I will just go on from here. So also wondering, where does this sentiment of service, this humility, this joy in serving, where it is coming from? And the book goes on to say that it is the love of God. All of this spirituality eventually comes out to loving God. And when you love someone beyond anything, and you would do anything for them, and doing something for them is your heart's only joy. So that is the pinnacle of love that these guys were actually practicing, not just teaching. And that is the height of all spiritual religious culture, the book claims. And then I also wondered, at least the author finally concludes slowly, that what is actually the objective of religion? Is it doing our daily puja and just praying to God to give me this? Or is it doing elaborate rituals and yajna and all those things to sort out our problems, or keep evil away or whatever things we wish for. So, or is it maybe getting those mystic powers and yogic powers that yogis get by meditation and all their sadhana? That clearly is not, because that was established earlier. Or is it gaining knowledge about who we are, who is God, and whether I am the Atma, or whatever knowledge we are trying to seek? But the book has included it is none of these. These are all just initial steps. And the final conclusion, the final highest point, the author claims, is loving God. And he says, when you love God and recognize that He's present everywhere, in every living and non-living being, you end up living everyone. And that is where all this purity of heart comes into play. You want to serve everyone because you see God in everyone. You are intensely humble because you recognize that. You have immense kindness and compassion and honesty. Now, that is what he eventually concludes, that is the pinnacle of love, pinnacle of all this, whatever he was seeking. And he says that, so I'll just read from him. So he was told by someone that although God is the supreme controller of all universes, he finds the greatest pleasure in being bound by the love of his devotees. So even God reciprocates that love, and he wants to be controlled by his devotees. So how many have seen that movie, Mahavatar Narsimha? Anyone? So if you remember, in that movie when Prahlad was being taken to the cliff to be thrown, and then the guards asked that, do you not fear? He said that, when I've gripped the Zabhari ke pag dhar liyo, fir kahe ka bhai. And he said, what if he does not save you this time? He says, nahi bachaya to nahi bachaya, usme kya hai? And like, he is my Lord, whatever happens, I love him unconditionally. So that is sort of selfless love, that you do not want anything in return. You love them selflessly without any expectation, and then you can do whatever you want with me. That is the kind of selfless love, and that love wins God over. So later on, when he was thrown down that waterfall, if you remember, and then he was saved by Varun Dev, and he pleaded to Varun Dev that take me to Vishnu. And Varun Dev said that it is not only you who are dying in separation from God, even he longs to see you, and he is burning, his heart is burning, being separated from you. Just call him once. That is the reciprocation God does. And eventually when he gets darshan of Bhagavan Vishnu, you might remember he says, Bhagavan says that I am not Bhagavan, I am your Das. And that is how he loves to be controlled, the book says, even the movie says, by his devotees. So when someone loves you that much, you would become controlled by them and do anything for that. Even God is not immune to that. He wants you to love him, and then he wants to reciprocate that love with you. So even that movie started to make much more sense to me after I read this book. The concepts of that movie became much clearer. You all know there are so many saints we know in history who are bhakti saints, and the core message even there is loving God. Even Mirabai, who was married to a king, but he was I love only Krishna, and that love was selfless love. Like, she could be thrown out from her home and have to live on streets and anything, you don't care. Live at Ghansham. Selfless love, not wanting anything in return. That the author, and in that love, the author finally found his path. So he had explored all paths before that. He explored the paths of Ashtanga Yoga, he explored Buddhism, he explored various other paths, but that is where he finally found that his heart lay. What I could take away from this book, a couple of other things that could not fit into this list of things. So number one, again, I would say was, so often we see a lot of contradictions in our religious scriptures or religious happenings. Because, for example, somewhere they say they have to be vegetarian, and somewhere they're offering a sacrifice of animal in the temple of God. And there are so many contradictions. Everyone is doing their own thing. Somewhere even Brahmins are allowed to eat fish, and somewhere it says you have to pure veg. Somewhere you say you have to leave onion garlic also, and the Jains say you have to leave all root vegetables. So there is so much contradictions, and things apparently do not make sense when you see them from the surface. And then, so the author asked this question, and he was given an answer by someone. I will just read that answer. That answer has actually made things much more clearer, at least for me. So this is when he had went to a temple of Devi, and there a goat sacrifice was being done. So he asked someone that why this is happening, I don't understand. So he says, in every religion, people interpret scriptures and follow their particular practices according to the level of realization. For those who seek the essence, the path is selfless service and meditation on God. For attaining higher material enjoyment and reducing sins, increasing piety is recommended. But for those who crave material boons, there are a variety of practices such as sacrifice to observe. The Veds are said to be like a desire tree, wherein we can find a path to fulfill whatever we seek. So the Veds, or even God, is called a kalpataru, a wish-fulfilling tree. That there are different fruits on different branches of the tree, and whatever fruit you want, you climb that branch. So whatever wish you have, all those wishes can be fulfilled, but there is a path, different path for each one of them. If you want, let's say, a son, you would do yajna, putraka mishti yajna maybe. If you want to go to heaven, you would do a separate, different yajna. Maybe you would do more punya, less paap, and do pressure for the paap. If you want maybe defeat your enemies, you would maybe sacrifice an animal to a temple of Devi. If you want immense power, then just as they did tapasya, and they tapasya for Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, and they got boons from them, and they wanted immense power. If they want those siddhis that the yogis have, that we just saw, they would do their different sadhanas. And if they want realization of God, then there is the path of, there are different paths again, of bhakti, of dhyan yoga, and all those paths. So it is a wish-fulfilling tree with different fruits. It does not say which fruit is worth trying for. It says whatever the fruit you seek, the path is here, the branches are here, but there are different branches. So there is no contradiction per se. That different practices are described by different people, and different practices being followed by different people within the same system, because they're all seeking different fruits. They're not seeking the same fruit. And whatever fruit you seek, you follow that path. Now it is up to you what fruit you decide to choose. So that actually made a lot of sense to like make sense of what's going on. The other thing was that we may or may not realize, but God is always guiding us. So throughout this journey, all these trials and tribulations, God was guiding Radhanath Swami through different ways. He could not realize that in the beginning, but eventually he says that yes, you were listening to my prayers, you guided me. There were a couple of incidents that specifically are worth mentioning. So when he was in Patna, he was lying on the banks of Ganga, and over there some sadhu comes to him that please come into our temple and you stay here. And he stays there for some time, and later on that sadhu reveals to him that the head priest of our temple, Ram Sevak Swami, he had a dream last night. Lord Ram came to him in a dream and said that this boy is a devotee of Krishna. His place of worship is Vrindavan. He does not know it yet. And if you tell him, he will not believe it. But you must take care of him. So that head priest instructed this sadhu that you take care of this boy and you teach him only Krishna Katha. He should hear nothing else. So that was how God was guiding him. In another incident, so when I said that he met Gary in Nepal, so Gary was in Nepal with his friends and doing all sort of hippie things, like drugs and all those things. So he said that you have come to India, you have come to this sacred land of spirituality. So when you are here, at least try experiment spirituality, do something about that. So Gary agreed. So they decided to go to Amarnath. So again, they went to Patna, they boarded a train. And train, they boarded a third class compartment where you can just jump in, and there are so many people that TT cannot even come in to check your tickets, so you can travel for free. That is what I discovered, that free mode of traveling. We got in a third class compartment. not third AC, third class. So they got in that train, was going from Patna to Haridwar, and then from there they would go to the Amarnath Yatra. Somewhere in the middle, the train just stopped, and it stopped for more than a day. And they were just suffocating inside the train. They decided to come out for some time just to take some fresh air. The moment they came out, the train started to melt away. And they were stranded on that random station. They asked around, what place is this? And they said, this is Mathura, and today's Janmashtami. So, because God wanted him to come to Vrindavan, so he just stopped their train at Mathura, and they eventually got to Vrindavan. And again, so from in Vrindavan they stayed for a couple of days, and they intended to continue their Amarnath journey. So Richard said to Gary that you go to Haridwar, I will come after 5 days. I want to stay a bit more. So they agreed. On the 5th day, when the morning he was supposed to leave for Haridwar, he got seriously ill. He got TB, he was admitted to hospital. A few days later, he got released, but advised 1 month of no traveling. So he had to stay in Vrindavan. And Gary again was stranded. He didn't know why he did not come to Haridwar, and he had no means of even ascertaining that where Richard went. So because God intended that his path lies in Vrindavan, he did what he could to make him stay in Vrindavan. And that is how God was guiding him throughout his journey. And if you pray sincerely, he listens to your prayers. So while in Vrindavan, his visa had expired. And some government officers were after his life to just capture him and deport him. At that point, he was stuck, like, what do I do? He had been arrested when he just escaped narrowly from there. So, what he did, I'll just read out from here, it's more effective that way. One morning at 4:30, as I prayed in the Radhanath temple, I presented my case before Krishna. If I try to leave India with an invalid visa, I will never be allowed to return. If I stay, it is only a matter of time before I am apprehended and then deported from Vrindavan forever. Then he said, please do to me whatever you wish. In the darkness of the early morning, I left the temple and paced along a narrow lane. Suddenly, an eerie howl rang out in the dark. Horror struck, and the fangs of a beast plunged into my right leg. Gripped by the formidable jaws, I was dragged to the ground, and then it was over. I looked back, saw only darkness. A dog had bitten him, and he had got rabies. He went to a government doctor in Vrindavan. He gave him a very painful injection, and then instructed him, you have to come back here every day for the next 14 days to take this injection, else you will die. Richard says, if I come, it's not possible for me to return. If I come on this main road every day, surely I'll be imprisoned, because the government officer was after his life and was searching everywhere in Vrindavan where he was. So if he came on that main road every day for 14 days, he would surely be arrested. The doctor said, I am a government doctor. I will write a letter with the government stamp. You take it to Delhi and they must give you a valid visa. So he wrote his medical condition and that he needed treatment, and for that treatment he needed to stay in India. He went to Delhi. He reached the Home Minister's office, and to a high-ranking official, he presented his case. The immigration official looked sternly into my eyes, he said. Then he spoke. I will not be able to sleep at night if I know that I am the cause of your death. He called for my files to be brought in, and with great care, he regularized my immigration status. Now you are completely legal. There is no longer any problem. With these words, he stamped my passport with a fresh visa.
Wow.
So, this was just one example how God listens to our prayers. And also an example that what may seem an unfavorable situation to us or a trouble to us at the moment is also God's plan. And He is our ever well-wisher. He wants something bad for us. So if something seems at the moment happening bad, it is also His plan. I know I've tried a bit to preach, but that is not my intention. I don't want to preach the philosophical tenets of this book, nor am I capable of doing that. So I just wanted to leave you guys with questions and with a sense of wonder at the journey of this young guy and the things he saw and experienced. Because this book left me with a lot of questions, and which are mostly which do not have answers to yet. So I will not give the answers to you because I do not have them myself. I will just ask you to read this book. You will get questions. You will get answers to some of these questions in the book itself. And some you will take with you and maybe search for the answers elsewhere. I've specifically not covered the most important or the best parts of the book because I want to leave that for you to read. I have covered just not even the tip of the iceberg that this book contains. In these 2 years in India, he had so many adventures that it is not, people can imagine that so many adventures could be happening in the life of one person, that too within 2 years. So many adventures, so many spiritual realizations, so many people he met and learned from everyone. And those learnings are presented not in a very theoretical way, but through those experiences that he saw and experienced. So those learnings come directly. So when the author says the journey home, what does home mean then?
Himself.
So, not exactly. So we often say the home is where the heart is. So home, as he claimed, he means when he says the journey home, I think, is home is our eternal loving relationship with God. So that was his journey to home from America. After that, he lived in Vrindavan for quite some time till his visa finally expired on normal terms. He again went to Nepal, and again, interesting account. He was living in a cave. He was just crossing the road to go to his cave, and then a bus came.
What happened?
I'm not relating to the time. If that is what you're intending.
But I think let us finish.
Yeah.
We should let him finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a bus came in front of him. It flashed his headlights on him. It suddenly stopped. There was a sudden stopping sound of the bus, a shouting sound of a couple of people. He just wondered what happened, who came. A couple of guys came to him, and again it was Gary, who he had left in Vrindavan. Gary had gone to Haridwar and waiting for him. He never came, and again become lost. And then again in Nepal they meet. Gary narrates this incident. He says, I was sleeping in that bus, and just my eye opened, and for just a moment the headlight pointed on Richard, and I just shouted to the bus driver to stop the bus, and I got out there. The companion of Gary says that I witnessed this, even I cannot believe this happened, but it did happen. So a very fascinating, adventurous book in that, even if for those not interested in the spiritual realizations of Radhanath Swami. So I will just end my presentation here. So normally when I present books, I do some in so much detail that often there is nothing left for you to read after that. But this book I would say not even covered the tip of the iceberg, and I would really ask all of you to just give it a read. It's also available in Hindi. Anokhi Yatra, Anokha Safar, something like that. It's called The Journey Home. So I think that was all from my side. Thank you everyone.